Hey friends, welcome to 2023. This is Andre and I'm here with Vansh. Hey man, how you doing?
Hey Andre, yeah, it's good to be back on another edition of Tennis and Bagels. Miss doing these shows with you and Owen, and Happy New Year to everyone listening. And
Yeah,
yeah, let's kick off this new tennis season. I'm really excited, and it was a good first week.
yeah, same for me. My bit of my New Year's resolution is try to dedicate myself a bit more to this podcast. I feel like it's been a little dead for a while, so I'm gonna try to tweet more from that account. I encourage you to interact with me, like answer questions and tweet back at me. I try to be very active on this one. So let's see if 2023 holds a little bit more of a action for tennis and bagels. Let's put a little bit more coffee in this breakfast, shall we? Um, so yeah, we just finished the first week of 2023. A pretty big event just finished the United Cup. The first is not the first, but I'm pretty sure it's the first event that actually awards ranking points to both WTA and ATP players, where they play an actual joint team event. Because we had the Hopman Cup for a while. I'm pretty sure there must have been like a few exhibitions here and there, but like this is the first official tournament that puts both of them together. And honestly, I'm just gonna say right at the top of this that the fact that I can watch the WTA on Tennis TV is pretty awesome. Like I feel like it should definitely be the way. Definitely showed the potential of it that I'm on the exact same streaming platform and I can watch a women's match and I can switch it over to the Adelaide match that was going on at the same time. I think Auckland was a WTA event, so I would have to watch this on WTA TV. But it'd be awesome if they all were on the same platform. Like, I mean, if you can put on like an app that shows scores together, why not just kind of come up with your own streaming event? Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure that they should have been looking at those broadcasting numbers and seeing some differential in there. And maybe that would be the place for a business proposal for them to actually have finally a streaming platform that shows all of the ATP and WTA events in the same place. That would be
Yeah, I thought
great.
that
I
was
wouldn't even mind like paying a little bit more for that one. So
yeah. I mean, that's a really good point. Honestly, I love that. Like because this kind of gave tennis fans and everyone involved in the sport into kind of a glimpse of what the future of tennis could look like if the ATP and WTA kind of joined forces, and we were able to get everything on one streaming platform for everyone to watch. Like, I mean, Tennis TV and ATP and WTA, they coordinated it pretty well, I would say, for their first, for the inaugural event, like the first ever debut of men and women competing together. Like, we saw the interaction between the female and male players, and along with the captain, along with the videos that they were doing just to promote the event on the ATP website, on the WTA YouTube channel, and they were kind of merging their content together. And I thought that was a really neat way to do it because, yeah, I mean, the last thing, I mean, this sport is really hard as it is for even the diehards to follow on one place. So if we can get, I definitely like that, that, tennis should definitely leverage that the women's and men's sport is in such a strong place, and that's one of the things that separates tennis is how elevated the women's game is. And so if we can have it all, if we can have them competing side by side, and just the interaction, especially amongst the U.S. team, them being super close together, and uh, like the fact that you can watch Pagula and you can watch Fritz, and you have highlights for both. It's like, it's just it's a great way to do it. So I thought that was well done. The event was quite, it was 11 days long. I believe it started in December 28th. So I was like, is this,
yeah,
I guess this is officially 2023. But I thought it was interesting the way they did it. It was kind of a plus from the ATP Cup, just because of the combined nature of it. But I still felt like, obviously, with some tweaks and some changes, I mean, you got some great high quality matches between top 20 players, especially on the men's side and even some on the women's side. But I think I got to a point later in the week where it became really hard to follow this, actually.
mm,
The main reason is the way that they set up their format and the qualification process. 18 teams, which is quite a few countries, right? And you had, obviously you have the major power horses like Italy and the US with really strong teams, and Canada wasn't in it, unfortunately, and neither was Russia. And so you had a lot of top male, female players, but then you also had sort of other matches that, while they're great athletes, they're outside the top 200, 300 in the world. and it's great that they're getting an opportunity to play on the main stage. I just felt like we got an oversaturation of a lot of matches, and ones that didn't really elevate the event, or it didn't really it may not have it may have sucked some of the luster out of the event as a whole, because I just feel like the mixed doubles, which is probably the main thing that makes this so great. They didn't really have it as a live rubber. Like, so you had five rubbers, and it was
And it
like,
was the last one.
yeah, and it was mostly always the last one, or it was like fourth. And I just
Yeah.
feel like they should tweak that a bit so that that gets front and center, and that's the main thing that we're trying to sell.
Yeah.
And so I feel like if we can, and I felt like the 18 teams thing was very weird because you had the group stages all in three different cities, and you had round robin groups. I like the round robin, and then you have four quarterfinals. Instead, we had three quarterfinals, and we are wondering where's the fourth one. But actually, the fourth one was just who had the best record amongst all the losing teams that made it. They're calling it the city finals, which is essentially the quarterfinal stage. And so I just found that very strange, because I'm like sitting there and doing the math between who's getting in, Italy and Croatia, and it just didn't really give that team thing. Like, I was mostly watching this event for seeing how does Nadal look, how does Tsitsipas look, how does Pegula look, how does Swiatek look. I was kind of looking at it from the vantage point of just the individual players, as opposed to like really finding myself rooting for a particular country, if that makes sense. And I just feel like maybe I'd gotten to do that a little bit more if it was shrink down a little bit. I feel like there are different ways they could have done it. Maybe 16 teams, and then you have four in each group, and then maybe you play, each men's and women's, you play their best player, you put their best player in singles, and then you have the mixed doubles kind of decide the thing. So you have, I guess, fewer matches, but it's kind of streamlined, and now you have a really good product. Because ultimately, this is a big premier event, right? This is 500 ranking points on the line, and you're just trying to sell the best players in the world. And I feel like Davis Cup, at least you have the crowd going for itself, and you have, the big, cowbells in the crowd, and you have like 23,000. Like, it's a really packed atmosphere for most of those ties, right? But in Australia, because it's in a neutral venue, you kind of need the stars to sell the event. Like, people want to buy a ticket so they can watch Nadal, right? So they can watch Swiatek, so they can watch some of the top players. And with all due respect to like Kuzmanov and like whoever the number 2 player for Greece is, or same on the women's side, like it just kind of felt like it was dragged on a bit too long, if that makes sense. So I would probably change it and make it best of 3 for the rubbers, and then I'd put fewer teams in there. And you could either do fewer teams and then make it best of 5, like how it is, or you can just make it a little less teams, like 16, and then just have fewer rubbers and then maybe more overall. But I thought for their first event they did a pretty good job. They didn't have a whole lot of time to set this up.
Yeah, that's true. Like, I feel like they kind of came along with this idea. I'm not sure how far along, obviously, they've been planning this, but they obviously staged the ATP Cup last year. I am not a fan of the 3-team format. I feel like it's always a miss, like when you have a round robin, because you only play 3 matches, and very often the last not very often, but like there is always a possibility that one of the teams just kind of doesn't really have much of a chance, like by the last one, so there's nothing to play for. So it's only the other team. So essentially, you just kind of want to play like a party pooper and just.
You have a lot of matches like that in this format, like that are just dead rubbers, but they're just playing because. And
I feel like the best format for me is the 4-team format. So you have 4 teams in the round robin, like like you do the ATP finals, 4
teams
like
of 4, right?
Yeah,
4 teams of 4, so that everyone gets to play 3 guaranteed matches. I feel like that's.
Yeah, exactly, and when it comes to the rubbers, I 100% agree with you. I don't know where the idea of putting the doubles matches last came from. Like, I don't know, it doesn't make sense. Like, how cool it would have been like if the United States have clinched the United Cup on the mixed doubles.
Yeah.
And you had like how iconic the picture would have been to have like, I think it was like Fritz and whoever like the girl was. I'm sorry, but like they hugging for the doubles at Pegula, who played in the mixed. I think they must have But like imagine if it was like Fritz and Pegula like playing the doubles match, or Tiafoe and Pegula, and they hug after the final point. That would have been like the epic picture to like put on like and instead of that, you just decide to have like a singles match, which is, I understand, like in the sense that like maybe the singles match sells more, but you can always sell it differently. Like when it's a teams competition, it's like it's not the teams, not mixed doubles. It's the United States are playing, or imagine Australia was there, like how pumped up they would have been. Like I feel like as much as we don't really like to say it as much, but like look at what Kyrgios and Kokinakis did last year in Australia. It was a doubles match, but like the final was packed. It was a packed stadium because
Yeah.
they wanted to watch their peers, like they want to support Australian tennis, they want to support like their country, and it barely matters whether like it's a singles match or a doubles match, as long as you have somebody to root for. And
Yeah.
I feel like the doubles match is definitely a lose to put it as a fifth rubber, which could be, but it's like a best of five, right? It's always good to see like a fifth set, but normally you're not gonna get that. So you're gonna like have matches that are gonna finish in 3 or 4, and it's the exact same thing with the rubbers. You're mostly gonna have the rubbers, the groups, the ties that are gonna finish in 3 or 4, and if you don't play the doubles match, it just becomes even more boring. If you know what I mean. So like when it becomes like a match that a must win match, that's a lot cooler, honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah, it really raises the stakes. But I think the thing is, my question is, if we take the best player of the WTA and the ATP in the singles, and then we have all these other teammates there, presumably for practice hitting partners, but also support, and also maybe we use them in the deciding doubles. Would you rather that the number one player on each, the WTA and the ATP for that country, like they have to play the mix together? Or would you say, like, for example, so if it's like, let's say Pegula plays her singles, Fritz plays her singles, the number two for women's was Madison Keys and Tiafoe.
Yeah.
And, Fritz isn't the greatest doubles player, like, being honest. He doesn't really like doubles. He's not great at the net. But let's say Tiafoe comes in and plays with Pegula because he's a bit better at doubles. Like, would you want that, or would you be like, no, only the top two people get selected, and we have fewer members on the team, and it's just like Fritz and Pegula have to play the doubles? It's kind of interesting. Like, I wonder how they would do it.
Yeah, like in the sense, like you saying, the number 1 and 2 in singles have to play mixed doubles together.
Yeah, like the number one player from the WTA.
Yeah,
and number one from ATP.
So you would have, like, for example, Poland be Hurkacz and Swiatek, right? Yeah. I think it'd be interesting just because you would make the players play a bit out of their comfort zone, so you probably level the field a bit more. So you wouldn't have like Rajiv Ram and Pegula or Coco Gauff playing like in singles against like a Tsitsipas and Sakari, like, for example, would be probably a blowout.
Right. Yeah. So I just feel like they could have because of the number of matches, it was hard to follow, and it kind of watered down the event, and I just felt like it was like prolonged so much, and like even when we knew who the winners were, we still had 2 or 3 extra matches, and it was just like
I think that mostly I am all for like playing 5 matches instead of 3, but I think maybe for this format they could have done like ATP Cup style and just go for 3 and put the double second.
I mean, you could make the 5, but then you could reduce the number of teams so that you have teams with like really good depth. So like you have 8 teams, but then you play 5 rubbers. I'm like, okay, I'd be down for that.
I do agree that it was hard to follow because I wasn't really watching, so I was trying to like see the PDFs and things like that, and I was just checking. I was like, how is Italy in the semis? Like, then they lose.
No, I was confused. I woke up and I saw Italy is in the semis. I'm like, wait, why not Croatia? And then I saw, because Croatia, they won more sets.
But Croatia was in the semis as well. I think they were both in the semis, no?
Yeah, no, I think Italy got it over Croatia because
exactly. Yeah, it's true because Croatia lost to Greece. So
and so that was it was confusing for us to follow. So I imagine if other people are trying to get into the game, it would be even harder. And then and then to have all these countries hosted, you also had the issue of like you have to travel. I guess they had that in the ATP Cup as well for the city finals. So one team has already been playing all their matches on that court, they're adjusted to the conditions and the surface, and then the players have like maybe 2 or 3 hours to get there, adjust, and a day for travel, and maybe the time zone is different too. I'm not sure, maybe by an hour or 2.
Yeah, in Australia, people coming from Perth, I think the time difference is like about 2 to 3 hours. So
Perth to Sydney, and it's like a 3 to 4 hour flight, and then you have to get used to the speed and the conditions and the environment. It's it's a little bit rough. And I also wonder how much it takes out of these players. I mean, the good part about signing up, for example, let's say if you're Nadal and you're looking for match wins and confidence, he's guaranteed to get 2 matches against pretty much decent players. But if he enters a 250, for example, he might play like a decent. He might win his first round and then lose early, like because the draw would be stacked.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there are some benefits to this. But I also just wonder, like, if we're just having oversaturation of events just in general, because it's like, what does this really mean? Like, I watch these matches and I'm looking for just individual players and their form and how they look before the start of the main event, which is the Australian Open. And I'm not really like trying to like, don't really have an emotional attachment to the countries,
Yeah.
kind of just.
I feel like there's a better way, especially like after we've seen the World Cup just happen. So like everybody was super invested into it, even though like.
But people are invested in the World Cup because it's every 4 years, and it's like it's like a novelty, right? Like it has a lot of prestige. But like something like this, like we just had Davis Cup, like we just had it.
Exactly, and the Billie Jean King Cup as well. We just had like a lot of those cups, and I feel like in that sense, like there is this problem that sort of needs to get addressed in tennis, like sooner rather than later at this point, I would say, which is the saturation of the calendar. Like you just said that like we just started this event on December 28th. Like at first, like when I don't know this, by the way, like even though I work at Tennis Canada, I do not have any information on why Felix and other players and Leylah did not really participate. They have to decide whether they want to participate or not. But like in my honest opinion, I look at this calendar and I'm like, I don't want to spend New Year's Eve like playing a tennis match. Like I mean, if I have
their season is finished late. Like I mean, Felix is finished, 30th. I don't like he probably just wanted a little bit extra time, and then maybe he can go to Adelaide 4 or 5 days later and maybe just get into that proper individual tournament mindset, because he just went through that again and they won all the way to the end and they won the whole thing.
So it becomes like less interesting in that way. So like I can definitely agree with that. And if you crunch like more and more tournaments and more important events, quote unquote, then like at some point nobody's gonna really want to play, and they're gonna have to pick like which one is the actual important event, which one isn't. I think the United Cup is a very important event, especially for its complete differential of being like mixed men and women, and I think it should be put up on the spot a lot more. But there has to be a discussion of like what's the place of the Davis Cup and the Billie Jean King Cup and the United Cup, and
absolutely, because Davis Cup has the history, like it has the 100-year plus history, and then United Cup has this amazing idea, and it gives us a glimpse into the future. But this one is ranking points, so Davis Cup doesn't have that, and it's like
I would say honestly, like make the United Cup the Olympics. This is change the Olympics format to the United Cup, and that you have like a very beautiful format instead of just like a tennis tournament. It would change a lot, but whatever.
I mean, just the calendar in general, like you're so right. Like December, I mean, that was supposed to be an off season generally, you would think, but then you still had all these exhibition tournaments going on. A lot of top players were playing. I mean, obviously they get paid really well, but they're going around and they're playing like intense matches. Like this is not like just a hit and giggle. Like you had like Sabalenka and like Felix, and I mean Felix played a little bit, but not a ton. You had like Tsitsipas, Rublev,
which was also a team event.
Also a team event, and they the one where you couldn't see the court. I forgot which one that was, but like I wasn't really paying attention because I'm like, this doesn't really mean anything. There's no stakes, but at this like I didn't really watch any of it, but like I was just following them. Like these players are like. And to some extent, I kind of get their mindset, because they're like, I might as well just keep my match sharpness and going into Australia. And then I feel like what a lot of these top players are going to do is like, there's no more off season. So they're just going to take time off in February and use that period between Australian Open and Indian Wells. I think Casper Ruud said he's actually going to do that. And it makes sense for a player like Ruud. But then when you have, players or maybe fans complaining about like the off season, like the season is too long, but then like, why are you playing exhibitions the whole month? All throughout December. So the tours could literally be like, hey, if you're just going to play exhibitions, why don't we just put another 500 here and another 250 in December? And it kind of just like I just feel like there has to be a bigger discussion had about maybe players' mental health, physical health.
I feel like in the sense like tennis players after thinking about like other sports like football or soccer and hockey, which they have like contractual teams
Yeah.
and events in which they actually have to come and play, and they have like the season, which is like an X number of games that they have to play. I feel like for tennis players, they're just kind of like, well, they obviously are contract workers. They're not necessarily hired by anyone in a sense, so that kind of makes sense for them. So in a sense, I've just wondered, like, I think the off season in tennis is just a hoax. It doesn't really exist.
It
Like
doesn't really exist. Yeah.
players
Like,
can take time off whenever they can or they want to. So it's like if you're like, for example, a like Rafa Nadal, and you decide I'm just going to like not play the clay swing after the Australian Open, and I'm just gonna stop at the Australia, and my next term is gonna be Miami or California. So how long is that? So like is what, like 3 weeks or something that he can get like off or something like that? So he can
Yeah.
kind of like mix his own vacation. So I wonder if like can we just assume ourselves as like tennis does not have an off season, that there is like a season
Yeah.
with like less tournaments, and then like players get
Yeah.
to like take their vacation whenever. But that's
I
way off
understand it's
topic
tougher.
from the
I
from
understand
the
it's tougher
America.
in tennis, obviously, than
Yeah,
team sports because
yeah,
you don't play, you don't earn anything, you don't earn any money, unless if you
exactly.
have
Yeah,
really good sponsors and you're like a legacy type player like the big three and Serena,
yeah. They kind of
Naomi. It's like
money chases you in a way. So
yeah, and like you have to commit early in advance to these events
yeah,
because you have to make your agent happy, sponsors,
yeah,
their opportunities down the road. So and then some players like just need some of that match play and that team environment is good for them. But it just kind of depends on the player. But at this point, there's no off season in tennis. Like there isn't one.
yeah,
I refuse to believe there's one.
yeah,
But I guess back to the United Cup. I mean,
yeah.
who are some of the players that like stood out for me? I mean, I was impressed with Fritz. Like on the men's side, I was impressed with Fritz. He won most of his matches, beat Hurkacz and Berrettini, and clinched it in really tight moments,
Hmm.
in tie breaks, in both matches. I was impressed with Nori because he took out Nadal, de Minaur.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think
uh,
the United Cup, like there's team events, they always players always bring their best, because whenever it's a team event, I think that there's the mental support there is not there in singles. They are able to find answers. They're able to find another gear to inspire themselves a lot easier than it is like in a regular season tournament. So there's absolutely no question that the quality of tennis has potential to be more linear, in the sense that like there is going to be less dips, and I feel like the potential for like higher quality is like very big. It's not going to get maybe into Grand Slam quality. Maybe back in the Davis Cup time, we used to get to Grand Slam quality, but nowadays I think the Grand Slam just kind of elevated themselves a little bit more. But like obviously, like a team competitions, every player gets to play like really well. Like remember like Roman Safiullin, like last year in the ATP Cup, he played
yeah.
phenomenal, and he was ranked like what, like 170 in the world. And so many players played so well, like in their in
They
team
also just
events.
don't want to let their team members down. And
Exactly. And Martina
like,
Trevisan, she played super well to take Sakari out. So
yeah. And then like players like, for instance, de Minaur, I feel like every time he plays for
yeah,
Australia, he goes up like 3 notches. It's like you can just see
exactly.
it in his eyes,
He
the
becomes
intensity
like
he has.
top 10 player.
Yeah, I mean the way he took out Nadal like from a set and a breakdown,
Yeah.
and then the the just like I've seen him play for Davis Cup, ATP Cup many times. I mean,
He gets excited. That's the thing. Yeah.
like with Leighton Hewitt like screaming in his corner like after every point. Same with like Tim Henman
Yeah.
for Cameron Norrie and for Dan Evans for these other
Yeah.
players.
And you can see, like, for example, even Andy Murray, like, he loves team competitions. He absolutely enjoys being in the atmosphere. He wants to do it for Great Britain. It might have been even the reason why he was able to do Wimbledon like more than once, like the first one, 2013. So yeah, like there is a huge place for team competition in tennis to make something out of it. And I really liked, I feel like there is a lot more positives, even though we rented for quite a while on the United Cups. I feel like there's a lot more positives. Even if the positive is just that it happened for the first time, it did happen.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and maybe it's up to you to figure out how to filter the rest of the matches. Like, maybe you just focus on the matches that have the higher stakes or the top player matchups that you really want to see. And then you still have like Adelaide going on. You still have, some great WTA action going on in Auckland or,
Yeah.
Adelaide, you have the ATP and the WTA. So it's like a very chaotic time, like these 2 weeks before Australia. It's been like this for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And you're just like trying to, like this week we have like Australian Open qualies, and then you have like another 500, and you have like WTA 500 so stacked that you have, players inside the top 30 in qualies playing each other in the first round, like Teichmann and Anisimova, and it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Because and then at the same time, players are just coming in off of an off season. They're trying to find their form, fine tune for Australia. They maybe don't want to peak so early, and then you see like some players pull out because of injury. Musetti pulled out in his match yesterday in Tiafoe in a team competition because of an injury. It had to have been bad. They probably just didn't want to make it worse. And then, you have these like niggles. You had players pulling out, obviously, trying to conserve their energy, and it's like a tough one because you want to be like prepared for Australia, and you want to get like a good number of matches and reps under your belt with like ideal preparation, but you also just like really want to win and don't let your team down in the United Cup. And it's like the balance of the two I thought was really good. But speaking more about the players, I mean, I think Nadal for me is a very interesting one coming into this tournament. That's because, I mean, obviously he had a fantastic first half of last year.
Yeah.
And, we know what happened at Wimbledon when he won that match against Fritz, and then he had the abdominal tear and then he couldn't play against Kyrgios. But since then, it's been pretty rough for Nadal. I would say like he's not really been able to play because of the injury for a long time. And then he came to Cincinnati, won a few matches at the US Open, but the serve didn't really look good. Like he was tossing it a lot lower. You could see he was, a lot more doubtful about his form. He didn't really have a lot of matches coming in. And then he suffered some losses at the end of the year to Tommy Paul and a couple at the ATP finals. And at that point, I just thought, okay, that's fine. I'll write off the second half of the year. He also had a kid with his wife. Just became a father. He also had, the coming back from the tear. He also and also just indoor hard courts in general is not his favorite surface. And he played really good opponents like Felix and Fritz and Paul and Tiafoe and other good players who can really rush him on these quicker courts. But then I thought, okay, after this off season, he should be kind of fine tuning, looking good. And honestly, like he didn't look bad to me. Like he won these first sets against Norrie and de Minaur, and he was playing okay from the ground. But I felt like his serve kind of let him down, and he wasn't really finding first serves. His ball toss is lower than what it used to be. And I think Courier said in the commentary that he's not able to hit the kick serve, which generally he's more of a slice serve kind of guy. If you've seen him play, like, the slider out wide, and so he can dictate with his forehand on the next shot. But he was tossing it a lot lower. He was making a fewer percentage of first serves, wasn't winning as many second serve points. And it seemed like he was always kind of defending and behind in the rallies. And I just wonder, like, how much better is he going to get in time for the Australian Open? I feel like he'll have, best of 5. At least he can work his way into the tournament. And so maybe the first 2 rounds won't be as bad.
Yeah.
And he still has like time before the Australian Open, but he hasn't had a good win rate lately. He's lost 7 of his last 11 matches. And there are definitely some doubts. And, I feel like the field is definitely improving and getting better. Because, I definitely didn't see de Minaur beating him, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or like even Norrie, even though he played exceptionally well. I think, but then at the same time, I feel like we had these doubts last year as well, right?
Yeah, we definitely didn't expect him to win the Australian Open, though. I will say that a repeat of that is, He won
the 250, but the difference there was he played Ruusuvuori, Berankis, and Maxime Cressy, like not the same caliber level of players as
Medvedev and exactly that too. Yeah.
And so I was like, so maybe, and who knows, maybe he could have had, like he was a little unlucky with the players that he played in terms of him building up the form. Like he could have easily had like, Thiago Montero and like, someone else that he knows he can beat. And then maybe that would have given him some confidence because he's not really coming through in like the tight moments right now. But I feel like once he gets those more sets under his belt, and if he's healthy, which, some people think he came back from the ab injury too soon. I personally, haven't seen enough to make that call yet. But definitely I will be monitoring how it looks in the early rounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm also seeing that like he played in Sydney, So, as per what I've heard from the commentators, and after watching a bit of the Pigulas Swiatek match as well, Swiatek kind of a good comparison to Nadal in a sense, just because she uses like the high
like
kick
really
on the
fast court.
yeah. So the
Yeah,
Sydney courts were really fast and the conditions were different. Nadal was saying like how the conditions weren't very suitable for him.
yeah,
Which whenever he says, I feel like Nadal should always just quit with saying that's not an excuse, because as soon as you say it, it sounds like an excuse. But like conditions is tennis, right? So like you always play in different like conditions, and some conditions are better for players, some are not. That's why Nadal has never been
yeah.
able to win the ATP finals. And that's why he's been able to dominate in Roland Garros, right? So back to the United Cup, I think this Sydney United Cup matches may not have been the best comparison to what he might look like in Melbourne, but like if
Yeah.
there is like any problems with his actual serve, he might have been either trying to try something new or try to just like save his shoulder a little bit and actually make sure that he played the event.
Yeah.
Maybe he should have just skipped it. I feel like Spain might have enough star power. I'm not sure.
I kind of
Instead,
wondered why he
yeah,
didn't just enter a 250 and all that. I think it might have been because he was guaranteed 2 matches at least.
yeah, that could have been his idea. He probably just wanted to like play some and not necessarily care too much. But like Nadal cares about Spain and cares about winning
Yeah.
team competitions, and so does Alcaraz, and that's the reason why he kind of got screwed a bit after playing Davis Cup right after winning the U.S. Open. But it's in his mentality a little bit, so I don't blame him, and I don't think that he made this out of a selfish decision. Um,
Yeah.
but I feel like what we're gonna see in Australia. First round is definitely when we can say, okay, Nadal is doing good, Nadal is not doing great. So that's what we have
Yeah.
to wait for, I think.
Yeah. It does depend on kind of how his draw looks like because by the time you get to the third round, that's when he'll start facing the caliber of players that he played here.
Yeah,
Third, fourth round. Usually, first 2 rounds, you wouldn't have to face a seeded player. And it's best of 5 as well. Best of 3, it's on a fast court, it's much easier to sustain a peak for a really long time. I feel like maybe the only worrying part for some of his fans is the dips that he's kind of having in these matches where he's like winning the first set pretty comfortably. He's
yeah,
up break the second, and then all of a sudden he has this level dip, and his serve goes awry, or he's not able to come back in the third when the back is against the wall. But again, these are essentially just stepping stones to the major. So I don't feel like it's we should read too much into it yet.
yeah.
It's definitely something to monitor because he's defending a lot of points.
Yeah,
So he's the number 1 seed, and if he doesn't win the event, then he's inevitably going to drop further in the rankings and seedings, and then we'll see how it is for him coming into the clay season.
yeah. So who do you think is going to? Do you think Nadal has a good chance of winning the Australian Open?
I still put him in the top 5 favorites. I definitely can't say he's the favorite, like because Djokovic is there and he's playing really well, and for me, he's the unequivocal favorite. But if Nadal gets through his first week and he's looking pretty solid and good, and if he can avoid Djokovic until the semis, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
or the final, I mean, Djokovic is seeded 4th and Nadal will be seeded 1st, so they could only play in the semis. But he needs to probably pick it up, start serving better, probably just get a few more wins under his belt so he can feel confident and get those good feelings back. But I'm not going to underestimate him. I definitely think he still has to be one of the favorites just because he won this title last year and he did beat Medvedev. He did have some good wins. And yeah, and he has time to get ready. So
Yeah.
we'll
Did he play? He played 3 best of 5 last year, didn't he? He played Shapovalov.
Oh, you mean 3 5-setters? I know he
Yeah,
played
3 5-setters. Berrettini? Was it Berrettini?
Yeah, Berrettini was a 4-setter. But
setter, yeah.
Once he got through the Shapo match, Berrettini was a relatively comfortable matchup for him.
Yeah.
Although it got a little complicated towards the end of the third and start of the fourth, but he managed to get out of that. And then the real heroic act was the final, obviously.
Yeah, but did he not play another best of 5? Am I going crazy? I think he just played the 2, right? He just played Chapo and Medvedev.
Just the Shapo and Medvedev were the ones that were 5-setters. I mean, before that he played he played Berrettini in the semis, and then before that he had Manarino in the fourth round, and then he had Khachanov in the third round. I think the Khachanov one went four.
Yeah,
But
yeah. He played a bunch of four-setters. Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, the point is that that tournament, I mean, we gave him no chance, right? And because he had COVID and he was coming back from the foot thing, and then once he worked his way into the draw, and some of that pressure was just way off, right? Way off his shoulder because everyone thought Medvedev was the unequivocal favorite, and they were right to.
Yeah. Oh, wait, which he was. Like he was almost 100% going to win that match until he didn't. He didn't. So
yeah. So yeah, Nadal is another interesting one to follow. But I mean, in terms of everything else, I look at someone like Fritz, who is now going to be seated eighth, and who had a pretty solid year last year, and he just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah.
And now it's just the time to do it in a major, because he had a pretty bad loss at the U.S. Open to Brandon Holt in the first round.
Yeah.
But now with the ATP finals, all these top 10 wins, all these great people in his coaching corner like Paul Annacone, Mike Russell, and he seems to have improved his fitness. And
I do feel like his Australia as a hard court suits him better than New York. Because
definitely. I mean, you could see it already last year. He made the fourth round, played a very competitive match against Tsitsipas.
Yeah,
ended up losing that in 5, but he was very much in that match.
He also should have probably won against Djokovic in 2020, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, although that time, I don't think Fritz's level was quite where it is.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. But yeah, no, I feel.
But I think if he's in that position again, I don't see him losing that match.
I feel like he's a lot more mature now to pull it through.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so that's big for him. Like Alcaraz withdrawing, and then he's a top 8 seed. For him, that's big because then he avoids, playing Djokovic or something in the fourth round, right? So I think
he gets to try and get to the quarters again.
Yeah, so I think that's he's one to watch out for. And then obviously Ruud is going to be kind of interesting because he'll be seated second, and he didn't play this tournament last year, and he has a whole lot of points to gain this part of the year, and he could even make a push for number 1. And then I mean, who else on the men's side that I see? I mean, Tsitsipas, I saw some better things from him this week. He won all 4 of his matches. He finally beat Coric, who he struggled a lot against, from 4-1 down in the third set, and he won the first set 6-love, and it looked like everything was going to get away from him, and Coric was going to come on top again.
Yeah,
but he started giving himself a little bit more time on the backhand, started returning serve deep behind the baseline, almost like Thiem on the second serve, which is a much better play rather than standing up close to the baseline and taking these long, elaborate swings off of big, huge returns.
Yeah.
So I'm glad he made that adjustment, and he's blocking a few more back, and he seems to be waiting for his moment to attack again. Obviously the weaknesses still remain. I mean, the backhand is, still can be rushed.
I feel like one thing that Tsitsipas can do is like try to vary his position a little bit more. Like just like Thiem did like a couple of years back.
On the return,
I think it was in Australia. On the return,
what is trying to get him to do. Like, when you step in, when you stand in, like shorten that swing, block it, use the slice. But the problem is slice is, not one of the best in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to get better at that. So I like that play from him to go back on the second serve return, give himself a little bit more time, and then get his forehand into play, because his forehand is one of the best. And then his transition game, all court game. Sometimes I feel like he has so many options. He feels so overwhelmed sometimes because of, and so I think Philipp Husser is trying to get him to simplify it and just go for these regular plays on big points rather than trying to do something crazy. With those returns. And so he's definitely one because he gets a lot of crowd support in Australia, like because the Greek population is so big.
Yeah.
He's made the semifinals 3 times, and he has had some really big wins in Australia. He beat Federer in 2019. He beat Nadal from 2-0 down. So I feel like he is probably poised for another big run again. I mean, we'll have to see the draw, and we'll see how he looks. But he is maybe a top 4 favorite for me. Like going in.
I do see him making maybe another quarter or semi. Like I feel like past that, definitely have to see his level in tournament before making a decision or making like a call, because Tsitsipas has become a bit streaky in the way that he plays. Like he plays really good matches, but sometimes his weaknesses kind of overwhelm him a bit. And I like the way you put it. Like he might think he has too many options, and sort of like a little bit how he ended up feeling when he lost to Rublev in the
Yeah.
finals. So like it doesn't matter that you have that many options if you can't really do anything with them, right?
Yeah.
So it's
In that sense, Rublev is simple. Like we know what we're going to get from him, and
and he's gonna do it to the best of his ability. So
yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, no, I think he learned from that match, and
yeah,
uh, but like him against Medvedev again would be something fun in a best of five because
he will.
now he's done a few different things against Medvedev, and he's trying to he plays him completely different serves and volleys, and uses the slice a lot more and varied his game up a lot rather than getting into those baseline backhand to backhand exchanges.
Yeah,
He's definitely he's won 4 of the last 6 now against Daniil. And they played last year in the semifinal. It was a close match for about 2 sets, maybe 3, but then Medvedev just kind of ran away with it. So I wonder if they play each other again and how that's going to work.
hmm
But yeah,
yeah,
he's definitely one. Nori is another whose serve and forehand is playing, just seems to get better every time I watch him. And he seems to go under the radar as usual, but he keeps improving, adding to his game, and he's one of those 8 through 15 kind of guys. But I wonder after beating Nadal if he's going to get more confident, and maybe we'll see him in the second week.
yeah. That's possible. Like I feel like he could get like a couple epic matches, like up to the fourth and
Yeah.
fourth in the quarterfinals, even third round. I think we're in for like a good treat, as the Australian Open always is. And what about the women's side? Who do you think is the best options?
Yeah, I mean,
I want
honestly,
to say
Pegula,
Pegula is I
Pegula
want to
for
say
me
Pegula definitely feels like
really stepped up. Like
she can do some damage this year.
like I mean, she talk about improving, and also the confidence that she gained from Guadalajara qualifying, playing so many matches last year, becoming world number 3, but then also carrying the US at the United Cup. Besides the first match that she lost against Kvitova, who was just peaking on big points and hit ridiculous winners on every single set point that she saved. Since then, I mean, Pegula has looked amazing. Like, I mean, lights out. Like, she played a perfect match against Iga.
Yeah,
And just like dictated, just like front foot tennis, return winners off of Iga's second serve consistently.
just being aggressive, taking the ball early.
Served pretty well herself. Those really fast, speedy conditions definitely suited her to a hilt with her flat ball striking, taking the ball super, on the rise early, and just believing that she can do it. And she dominated. She dominated Swiatek. And now I just wonder, like, because every time she's played Swiatek now, the last 3 times, the matches have gotten better. Like at the U.S. Open, they had a very good tight 2-setter. Then I watched them play in San Diego, and Jessica finally won a set. And now this time, in these conditions, that was a statement win.
Yeah,
And then she backed it up in the final. So and with her consistency last year, getting to the quarters and only losing to Iga and Barty,
yeah,
apart from Wimbledon, I feel like she has to be one of the top contenders right now.
yeah.
Yeah, along with of course Garcia and Sabalenka, but it's just with them, I'm just not quite so certain because
It's the old thing about like, can you sustain this level for like 7 matches in a row, right? So
because that is something in the WTA that's so hard for me to predict. Like, are these players who had success at the end of last year, are they actually going to build on that, or are we going to see fresh new talent like a Raducanu type, but just more of them, like just come in and like make deep runs at a major instead, and then we just have more depth. So that is something to follow, and then and then like Swiatek for me is still the unequivocal favorite. That loss doesn't really change anything for me, but
I do feel like Swiatek can be a lot better in Melbourne. She was very good last year, but she hadn't yet peaked to the level that she is now able to play at. So, but she was getting there and she was showing it. So I feel like she's going to be, honestly, for me, like every tournament now, Swiatek is the player to beat. Like there's no question about it, in my opinion. So
yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, I mean, Sakari is kind of another interesting one. Like she was playing very well until the tight moments of that Trevisan match where Trevisan really kind of got everything, really raised her level in some big moments. And I think Sakari was really frustrated, but I'm not I'm really not sure about the women's side. Like, I think Iga is definitely going to go really far. I just don't know about the rest.
Yeah.
I am encouraged by Sabalenka backing up what she did at the end of last year, getting to the WTA finals and then winning in Adelaide. I thought that was impressive.
Yeah, that's really good for her as well. She's been
And Goff
solving
getting
her second serve issues, right? She's been able to serve
yeah.
much fewer double faults, I think.
There's usually a period of like 15 minutes in every Sabalenka match where you're just like, wow, like this power is overwhelming.
Yeah.
If she can just replicate this for
It's
like
kind of ridiculous, right? That she can
30,
just like smash the ball and just it's in. It's like, how can you do that? It's kind
like
of like a
and
Del
sustain
Potro
that for
style of
for
aggressive.
like a set, and she can do it off of both wings and the serve,
Yeah.
and just take the racket out of your hands. Like
Yeah.
it's so much. It's just way. It's an overwhelming barrage of power.
Yeah. It definitely feels like for me the closest thing is on the ATP side is like a Del Potro, like a forehand. But
Yeah, I mean,
but
and
Sabalenka does that.
I do like these big hitters just generally to do well throughout the whole year, like a Samsonova, a Sabalenka, or
Yeah.
Rybakina, players like that because they have non-negotiable weapons, right, with the serve and their powerful ground strokes. Whereas some of the more counter-punching players, like they might give these power players some fits, but then they also have some bad matchups that they have to watch out for.
Yeah.
Like Sabalenka, I feel like every match that she's playing, it's almost on her racket, even sometimes against Swiatek.
Yeah.
So then it's just up to her. Can she control it? Can she like it becomes in the head then because now she's done everything else besides win a slam, and she's 24 years of age and she's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
So I just wonder, like this year, like I would be shocked actually if she finishes her career and doesn't win a slam, just because I feel like she has all the tools.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, if Caroline Wozniacki was able to win a slam, there's no reason why Sabalenka shouldn't.
Right.
No
Yeah.
disrespect, obviously, to Wozniacki, but it's just like the level of play that Sabalenka can play, in my opinion, is higher. Like the ceiling is a lot higher.
The peak, like we know what the peak is. I mean, she
Yeah,
had a very good rivalry with Barty before
yeah,
Barty retired, and even beat her in the Madrid final, 6-love. Like, and last year against Iga, like just blew her out in the third set of that WTA finals match. So,
yeah,
and nearly beat her at the U.S. Open. So I think if those two play, that could be another good rivalry, Iga and Sabalenka. And
yeah,
yeah, Garcia, I'm not so sure. Like she's a question mark for me, but yeah, but like she showed good consistency second half of 2022. So let's
yeah.
see.
You can just maybe hope that she's gonna keep that consistency. I don't think that Garcia is like not here to stay. That at this point, like I feel like she's going to be there. Like if she's going to go like
Has more
on,
clarity about her game now. She
yeah,
knows.
I feel like if she's going to decline now, it's going to be like a more steady, normal decline instead of just like completely losing her level and not being able to play well. I think, but I'm not entirely sure yet. Like I feel like she's, even though she's won the tour finals last year and did win, I think Cincinnati is it that she won. I do feel like she still has to win me a bit on a Grand Slam. I don't think I still wouldn't pick her to be a winner at a Grand Slam just yet.
Yeah, I mean, and then you just have the overwhelming amount of young talent especially from Czech Republic. Like they're producing such great players like Noskova, Frubertova sisters. I got to watch a little bit of Noskova this week in Adelaide. She got all the way to the final and lost to Sabalenka in a tight 2-set match. But the level that she showed in the beginning and the players that she beat Kazakina, she beat Azarenka, she won, countless tie breaks and came through in so many tight moments, including qualies. And I watched her game, and there's not much that can go wrong. Like her stroke production is really, really solid off the forehand, backhand, and the serve and the return. And I'm just like, and she shot up like 60 places. She's younger than Coco. She's like almost by a year,
Yeah.
and she's now in the top 60. And she has to play qualies at the Australian Open now after this run because, it's those were decided by an entry ranking from a few months ago. But nonetheless, like she is definitely one to watch out for me this year. Because yeah, she showed flashes of it. I think last year she played Raducanu in the first round of the French Open. I was pretty impressed, even though she lost.
Hmm.
So yeah, she's someone who really impressed me this week. But in general, she's talked really highly about. So I wonder if she is definitely the real deal.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Like, it's always a little bit like that with WTA. We definitely are getting like some more players that are coming and just kind of here to stay. But the depth of talent is still really deep. Like, it's really cool to see like so many good players coming off of the WTA, like juniors and playing well at such a young age, which is not necessarily something that happens in the
We
ATP
also
right
have
now.
like
So yeah,
Alicia Parks, who finished
yeah,
on high last year, like winning those two 125s, and then I think she was here for the United Cup and was supporting the team the whole week. So
Hmm.
I'm not. Maybe she can like carry that form. She had like one of the fastest serves ever recorded or something last year,
Oh,
132 miles per hour, something like that. Like,
that's pretty ridiculous.
so she has a very good serve. Like, and then I think the Krejcikova was going to be interesting for me because she beat Swiatek in a 500 final in October last year in Ostrava on an indoor hard court,
Yeah,
and that really got my attention because she'd also won a title the week before, and it seemed like there's no way if she's at her best should she be like 20 in the world. She's more like a top five player to me.
yeah, agreed. Totally.
So,
Hopefully
like,
she comes back, yeah, to her best
yeah,
level. And I think for that she kind of needs to give a little bit up on the doubles.
doubles,
Yeah,
yeah. Because she's so damn good at both. Like it's
yeah,
her doubles resume. She has a career slam in doubles, and
yeah.
she's won two mixed doubles titles,
And
and
she won last year, right? She won WTA finals last year as well.
yeah, she won the single. She won the doubles in the U.S. Open as well.
Yeah,
Like she has such a awesome resume already. But like, I mean, she's also just a joy to watch. Like her and Iga would be something amazing again. And yes, there's like a lot of other players that I just wish would have a resurgence. Like there's Karolina Mukova. I really enjoy watching her.
yeah. And just for the record, Krejcikova has won has she only didn't win the French Open last year.
Yeah,
But she
like
won every other big tournament, I think.
in doubles, yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. Like, um, but yeah, she's just super smooth to watch and really just doesn't have any holes in her game. But I think what just held her back last year was just coming back from that elbow injury. Like it just took her a while to get going. But
Yeah.
once she found it, she's pretty surface versatile. Like I wouldn't be shocked to see her in a Wimbledon. Late
Yeah.
round.
Oh, and also she did not win the World Tour Finals last year. They lost
Yeah,
to
they
Veronica
lost to they
Mertens
lost to,
Kudermetova.
yeah, I remember it was like in a super tie break,
Yeah, it was.
but like they've already won the WTA finals
Yeah,
before.
they won the year before, 2021. So
But yeah, I mean, so that's kind of who I'm looking at on the women's side. I mean, I would hope for an Andreescu resurgence, but I think that might take a bit longer. I don't think she's quite ready for it yet.
yeah,
I
I'm
thought she,
excited. I'm excited. I think the Canadians can do well this year. I feel like they have in their goals, I believe, to get back to the top 20. So um
I definitely
hopefully
still
the
believe a lot in Leila. I think that injury at the French Open really hurt her last year.
you
I think.
did. You really
I think she
did.
could have had a much better year if it wasn't for that.
Yeah.
She still did win a WTA title in Monterey, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, she did. She won she had to save 5 match points against Osorio in
So
the
that was a good
in the
final.
final, yeah.
But
And
yeah, no, she was in the quarters of the French. She
yeah.
just beat Bencic and Anisimova. She was looking really good until that injury.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then we
everything.
had the classic case of like, will Raducanu be healthy to play?
Yeah, this was unfortunate because she plays a
Yeah.
very good first round, gets through Frubertova, who's a really good talent, and then is up 6-love and is like deep in the second set, and then she just slips because these Auckland conditions turned into indoor courts
Yeah.
because of the rain, because of the nagging rain, and then she slipped and didn't really think much of it, but then she had gotten a timeout, she got everything taped, and then retired and was in tears. And I know that she definitely worked on her fitness throughout the off season because she got a new fitness coach, Jez Green, who's like one of the best in
Hmm.
the business. So I don't think it's like she's not putting in the time to get fit. Like she definitely is. I think this was more of a freak thing,
Yeah,
and
I
hopefully it's
agree.
nothing too serious for the Australian Open because
Yeah.
I still believe in her as a talent. I still think she showed some glimpses of it last year, even though it was not a good year for her. And I think the main issue is not the serve, forehand, backhand. It was mostly the fitness. She retired 4 times.
Yeah.
She and obviously, she did have expectations, pressure, and we knew she was going to not perform at the. It wasn't like once Raducanu won the U.S. Open, we weren't looking at like a 20-time major champion. We were looking at someone who's probably just going to settle down, take time, and maybe reach closer to that heights in a couple of years, right? That's kind of what we thought. So I just hope that she can stay healthy and that she gets a few more wins.
Yeah.
Because like I think she'll have a more normal trajectory this year. I think I still expect her to finish somewhere in the top 50 this year because I think she'll have a more normal schedule. She got used to the rigors of the tour last year.
Yeah.
And hopefully she doesn't keep changing coaches again.
I feel like this year, like she has potential to set herself up a goal to finish at least in the top 30. I feel like if she's aiming like for less than that, I think she should aim higher, because even if you don't achieve, like I feel like she would have worked really hard for it. And
I could see her. I definitely see her as a top 30 player. And I think the faster courts definitely help her because easier power. She can hit the court a bit better, and she did kind of surprise me last year on the clay as well. Won a few more matches. I think pushed Piontek in one match in Stuttgart as well.
Yeah, 6-4, 6-4. It was a good match.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I'm not too like pessimistic on Raducanu, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not pessimistic at all. I'm just sort of like being patient about it. Like I would get pessimistic if like 3 years went by and she hasn't made any improvement, but it's just been her first year after winning the US Open. So because she was a Grand Slam champion and she was in the spotlight for so much, she got so much like screen time for everybody that it feels like she's been on tour for it just feels like she's been on tour for so long, but she really hasn't. So
No, I mean, like a year and a half ago she was doing her A levels and
she's 19 years old. Like, come on.
Yeah, like so just give her time, let her be. She'll figure it out.
Or is she 20? Did she turn 20 last year? I think she did.
She turned 20 in November, but
yeah, exactly. It was still though, like, come on.
20, like you got time.
Yeah.
I'm not worried, but yeah, I mean, any other players you're looking out for in the WTA before we talk about Djokovic?
Oh, I don't think so, honestly.
Yeah. But anyways, I guess Djokovic is back in Australia. So he got a really nice warm welcome. Adelaide, he has a lot of support there. And yeah, I've watched a lot of his matches, particularly at, his second round ended up being super difficult against Quinton Halys, 7-6, 7-6, who played like a top 10 player that day and really pushed Djokovic.
Yeah.
And was up 5-2 in the first set. And Djokovic, classic Djokovic, knuckled down in the tie breaks and refused to go away and just made so many balls and gave himself so many opportunities on his serve. His serve has become such a weapon. And once he got to the Shapovalov and Medvedev matches, that's when we started to see like just how efficient and well-rounded his game has become, because Shapovalov definitely pushed him and he still had chances. It was closer than a 6-3, 6-4 scoreline. But once again, like it just came down to a couple of bad games from Dennis. Like he double faulted 3 times to give the break in the first set, and then second set he did well actually to come back from a breakdown and lead 4-3. But then Djokovic came up with the goods, and it just wasn't enough. It was a bit too erratic, and Djokovic will make you do that because it forces Dennis to hit closer to the lines, go for broke on a shot that he's not as comfortable going on because of Djokovic's speed, and then it just becomes one of those matches where he shrinks the court and comes through. So that's kind of what I saw happen. And then in the Medvedev match, that one I was really excited about because their head-to-head is interesting, and they always seem to have really good matches. And Djokovic won their last 3, but one of those was in a retirement from Medvedev in Astana, and the other one was 7-6 in the third in the World Cup Finals when Medvedev served for the match. But this time I thought was much more straightforward. Djokovic really locked in on one key return game in the first set. Medvedev handed him a double fault, went huge on the second serve, and then struggled a little bit with his hamstring. Like he was stretching it quite a bit. Got a medical timeout at 5-2 in the first set. Took some anti-inflammatories and I think started to feel better. And then the second set went on, and then he played like this. They had this amazing 30-shot rally, and Djokovic just goes for the kill down the line forehand, and we're like, oh my gosh, he's back. It looks fine. And then he has to save break points in the next game, 2 of them, and he hits an ace on one of them, and on the other one, he goes 200 Ks down the tee on the second serve.
Yeah.
And Medvedev throughout this match was not adjusting his return position. He stood so far behind the baseline to return serve. And generally that works against most players. Is such an effective returner. But the problem is Djokovic hits that slider out wide. And then he has the whole court to work with, and he can serve and volley. He can get Medvedev out of his comfort zone.
Yeah.
And he's able to hold a lot easier. And this was a really quick court in Adelaide.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Medvedev, when he started doing this like a lot and winning points, he wasn't settling because he was doing it. But like now everybody's gotten used to it. So like he has to sort of come up with like at least like a bit more variation, like just returning a bit closer, blocking maybe a return on the forehand, like a slice. And then sometimes it's just go for the super deep return position as well.
But his tactic in this match was to get to Djokovic's legs, make these rallies super physical, grinding long rallies. And Djokovic was just like, I'm not having it. I'm going to win these quick points. And I'm not going to get myself in these rallies where you can actually contend with me on the backhand cross-court changes. Sometimes Medvedev can actually wear Djokovic down in that regard. And then he serves so huge himself, and then Djokovic is having to work to hold serve. But this time Djokovic just had other ideas because he was holding serve much easier because of that return from Medvedev.
Yeah. But
Medvedev did adjust in that 4-3 game and got himself to break point. And then Djokovic goes for a massive second serve, and the difference is he makes it and doesn't double fault. Medvedev double faults to give the break by going massive on the second serve. And it's just like, that's the whole match right there. And it was kind of anticlimactic, not as great as some of their other best matches, but yeah, like it was crucial, I guess, for Djokovic because he didn't want to be too tired going into the final, and he already had a hamstring issue.
And he still had to play a big final to win against Korda, isn't it?
Against a very good player, Korda, who is improving since the US Open last year. Already made 2 finals at the end of last year, losing to Felix and Rublev indoors, but it seems like he's beefed up his serve. He's always had beautiful, smooth ground strokes. Such a clean game to watch. Compact strokes on both the forehand and backhand.
It's pretty clean technique.
Moves pretty well for his height, I would say. Is pretty instinctive as a player, like likes to come forward. He's pretty complete all around, but the issue for him has been like fitness, because he's hasn't really put on that much muscle. And I feel like once he starts doing that, he will be a nightmare. Like he could be in the top 10. But like fitness and then maybe like shot selection at times and just little things like his serve, I think got way better in the off season. So that's a really big plus because before he just used to kind of dink his serve in, and he's 6'5". He should be getting way more out of that serve.
Yeah.
But against Djokovic, man, like credit to him because he had 4 set points in that first set. He had 6 actually. He had 5-4 40 love on his serve, and he lost that game. And Djokovic came back and he missed a ton of backhands and got broken, and then he had more set points in the tiebreak. Didn't take them, but then finally took it on his 7th. I didn't think Djokovic played a very good tiebreak for his standard in that first set. And I think he was still struggling with the conditions because it was day, and most of his matches were at night, so it was a little hotter in the heat. Sometimes Djokovic, doesn't always look his best. But credit to Korda because he still found a way to win, and he's so composed in that first set. And then he got himself all the way to a match point.
Yeah.
In the second set, and Djokovic
was it on his serve or was it at break point?
It was a break point. So Djokovic was serving at 5-6, 30-40 in the second set, and Djokovic hits. They have this amazing rally, and Djokovic goes huge on the down line backhand this time, doing to him what Korda had done to him in a lot of baseline exchanges early on. And then he has an overhead, but it's a really tough overhead. Like he's having to go back, looking at the sun, and everyone was holding their air because he's missed a lot of overheads like that in his career at pivotal moments. Not a lot, but like 1 or 2 that
significantly.
and he hits this one perfectly. Like it is just a gem. And he goes back and he hits this. Like Korda didn't do anything wrong at that point. That was all Djokovic right there.
Yeah, I wonder if that's like what Djokovic has been training on the off season nowadays. So it's like overheads.
Yeah, with how good his service motion is, it's puzzling to me that he decelerates on that overhead. But he had no issue with it this time, and this was a really tough one. Funny enough, he misses the easy ones and he makes the hard ones, I think. But anyway, he gets out of that and he wins that second set in the tiebreak, and now you're thinking, okay, this third set is going to be much more straightforward for Djokovic. But credit to Korda again, he hung in there. He was winning a lot of. Korda is one of these players, backhand to backhand, he can match Djokovic. Like I'm watching his backhand and it is like one of the best in the world because it's so precise, it's so flat, it's compact. He can mix it up. He can use the slice, draw Djokovic forward. He can do these different things and then just laser it down the line. He has such good control off that wing. I think his forehand is good too, but sometimes it just sprays a bit on him. And
Yeah, in a way, it kind of reminds me a bit of like Hurkacz, but less erratic on the forehand. I think his forehand is better.
Cleaner technique. Yeah, cleaner
yeah.
technique. Hurkacz has technical issues on his forehand. It's like, but yeah, you're so right about that. It's just so fluid and just so easy on the eye.
Yeah.
And then he, so he's always going to give himself chances that way. And he just kept on holding. And it was Djokovic who was getting frustrated that he wasn't able to break Korda's serve until the last game. Korda serving at 4-5. He was 40-15 up. But then Djokovic just does what he does and just lockdown mode, but just, absolutely refusing to let any ball go and just like throws up a lob that's like lands on the baseline, overhead smash from Korda at deuce, and he just misses it in the net. And then he just squeezed that last game out somehow. It was a Herculean effort because 3 hours and 15 minutes, and he had already saved a championship point. And it was brutal for Korda because he couldn't have played a better match, to be honest. And
to be fair.
But I don't think he can blame his performance too much. I thought, significantly different to the match that he had against Nadal at the Indian Wells.
Yeah.
Last it was up 5-2 double break. He probably should have closed that one out.
Mm-hmm.
Especially he played a really bad game. I remember at 5-2 in that match.
Yeah. I feel like players, because a lot of times at least me, I say like it's not a bad thing to lose to Djokovic and Nadal, or like if you lose to Federer back in the day.
Different, they find that extra gear.
Yeah, but at the same time, I feel like at this point now, that's when they should start saying like, no, like it's still not a good thing that I lost to Djokovic. Because I was match point up and I played such a good match, I should have won that match regardless. And like I should be looking at this like, next match I will win this. Like I will not leave this like on the table. I will not leave this as like my best performance against Djokovic. Like next time I'm gonna do it. So like I feel like this should be the now mentality of like the now gen, as we call them. If you're the now gen, you have to put away those matches. You have to be able to like at least believe that you can do it. Like even though like it's Djokovic's and Nadal, yes, but like you still have to believe some part of your player being has to believe that you can win those matches somewhere in your psyche. Otherwise, they're just always going to lose. So
yeah, and I think the key for all these guys is to like win the matches they're supposed to win and keep getting themselves in this position because
exactly.
You don't want to be playing this good against Djokovic and then crash out in the first round of Australian Open.
Yeah, totally. You want to make at least a quarterfinal. Like should be like a next time goal.
I'm looking at his game and I'm thinking there's no way. Like if he's ranked at 30 or 33 this time again next year, that would be a very disappointing year for him. Like he must be in the top 20 at least. Yeah. Like maybe even inside, getting closer to the top 10.
Yeah, top 15-ish. Yeah.
I see him as one of the best players behind like Rune and Felix and Sinner. Like he's kind of in that tier for me, but just a little bit behind because those guys all have some amazing athleticism and Carlos is already there. That's why I didn't mention him because he's literally world number one. But but it's like but yeah, if he keeps getting himself in these positions and he doesn't really emote a lot, but so that can sometimes help him and also hurt him sometimes. But he's got such a good team also behind him, like because his dad was a major champion. He has Radek Stepanek in his corner, so those are all good things.
Yeah, I'm always a little worried about like a father-son coaching relationship, but honestly, there seems to work quite well. So if I trust that if it goes south at some point, they will do better than just keep it going without it. But
and his sister is like the best golfer or something. Like
she's epic.
Yeah, so he's got the genes, he's got the game, he's got a good team.
Yeah,
he's young. These are all great things.
Yeah, I do think that he's got a great season ahead of him. Not even a great future, a great season. I think he's going to do well this season already. So
he's going to be 23 this year. So this is around the time where I would expect him to get going now.
Yeah. So the
future is looking very bright for American men with Fritz and Korda and even Tiafoe and
it's looking interesting as well, especially for the US. I guess like you were mentioning those guys. So
I think Yeah, I mean that's about it from Adelaide, I guess. Yeah, we already touched on Medvedev. I mean Sinner, I was disappointed to see Sinner get injured again against Korda. That was a bummer because Sinner, I feel like last year had a good season, but he wasn't finishing his runs. Like he was kept getting to the quarters and losing, and he had some injury issues. So that's why he was ranked like 15, but it really felt like he was winning more matches than that. But like his win percentage was very good. It was like fifth on the tour,
Yeah,
but his ranking was like 15th because he just kept getting to the quarters and losing.
yeah,
And he just got injured. Like he had some mid-match retirements, like the one against Rublev at the French Open.
yeah.
Um,
Eh,
and then those
So,
two sets stood up on Djokovic at Wimbledon, and he had match point against Alcaraz in the quarters of the U.S. Open.
oh yeah, that was brutal. That was match of
So
the year. But yeah, I I guess right now we're just sort of like in the wait for the Australian Open draw and seeing like our next episode for the preview of it. And yeah, hopefully we're gonna have Owen there. But like for today, I think we've made a rundown of all the important events, plus some
yes,
extra events that could not be missed in the Tennis and Bagels podcast. So yeah, I guess that'll be it. Thanks much. Thanks for listening, listeners, and we'll be here next week for the Australian Open preview, and we'll see how much of that tournament we can watch. Because unfortunately, we're not living off of this podcast yet, so we have day things to do, and but we'll definitely be following a lot as
yeah,
um
we'll always try our best because
yeah,
we love this game, and we're there for you guys on Twitter. So if you have any
yeah,
questions, like DM us,
yeah,
feel free to comment. Give us some suggestions on episodes that you want to do later on this year.
yep,
We'll be happy to take them on, and it was fun being here with you, Andre. And
yeah,
yeah, it was a good start to the year, and we covered a decent amount of ground, so that was good.
yeah. It's pretty good. Excited for the Australian Open, and well, let's see what happens this week as well. And yeah, thanks again, Varsh. I'll see you next time. Bye.